plucky pensioner from Barnsley who's won thousands of fans because she gave a really straight-talking... she expressed herself very clearly on coronavirus.
Well, Maureen and her husband Michael both recovered from coronavirus earlier this year, and now her new legion of fans are calling for her to take over as the Prime Minister. Well, they both join us now from their home in Barnsley alongside Dr. Sarah Jarvis, who's also in the studio with us this morning. Good morning to both of you. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. It's good to see you. And Maureen, have you been surprised by the reaction to this? Because, you know, your straight talking, it seems, has got a lot of support with people.
Not surprised. Not surprised in the least. I'm just glad that the British public have awakened from death. They were put into doom and gloom in March, made to be afraid, and I just couldn't get my head round it. And when we went into lockdown, I didn't lock down. I went out every day. I was careful. I went out every day shopping. My husband was ill. He was ill from the 21st of February till the end of May. But I went out every day. And the thing is, what I can't understand is, we're having these lockdowns, wake-ups, lockdowns. How many of these can we afford? The people who are going to suffer the most are our young ones, and all the unemployed, and all the businesses that are going out of business because of this lockdown. If we take care of all the elderly people, and I mean the government take care of all the elderly people, don't mess about, for God's sake. Look after all the old people and the vulnerable. There's some young people who are vulnerable, and they need looking after. And all the rest of us, take care, go out, get out into the countryside. Even if you haven't got countryside, there must be a park. Go out and walk, get some fresh air, and when you go shopping, be careful. But go out.
So look, Maureen, if we could bottle
and
what
I don't want
you've
to be
got...
the Prime Minister.
It's Kate here. Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll ask you
you
about that in a moment. If we could bottle what you've got, there's no doubt we'd all be better off. You've got fantastic spirit, fantastic fire, you know, and people are loving your energy and your forthrightness as well, speaking, I'm sure, what's on a lot of people's minds. But you say they need to protect vulnerable older people. A lot of people would say that you are one of those, and they would like to protect you and your husband by encouraging you to stay at home. But I know that...
I don't want...
Carry on, sorry.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to stay at home. I'm too old.
Now, listen, Michael,
I'm too old.
I'm going to have a word with Michael. She says she's not being fastened in a house. I suspect, having married to her for so long, you know that she can't be fastened in a house. Is she somebody that is hard to get under control, Michael? She obviously sets her mind on the things and that's it.
No, she's not. Totally opposite.
Oh, OK.
She's very logical, very loving, very caring.
Oh, I can see that. I wasn't suggesting that.
We've been married for 61 years and no regrets. And what she says is exactly what she believes.
And that's important.
The people think this is something new. Look, I've gone through 6 pandemics, and the only difference between this and the others is government interference and getting it all wrong. And to me, I could they'll eventually come to see what has to be done.
Can I just say that we need for the government to get rid of the scientists, because I didn't vote for a scientist. Scientists should go back to the universities and the laboratories. I didn't vote for Mr. Whitty, and I wish that Mr. Hancock, Minister Hancock, would stop saying things that are foolish. We need Boris to get people around him who know what needs to be done. And what needs to be done is not lockdown. We need to get back to business. This country, the national health, we've got best national health in the world. But if we don't keep the economy stable and Well, we can't afford it, can we?
Well, Maureen, I think
It's as simple as that.
What they would say is that the scientists look at the risk, and one of the things is why we've had the restrictions in place is to protect the NHS, isn't it? So that not too many people end up in hospitals. Otherwise, our hospitals, our NHS won't be able to cope. They'll be overloaded. So I know you're saying you're being sensible, you're taking precautions, but we can't have everybody in hospitals. We need to manage the risk from that point of view when it comes to infection numbers.
Excuse me.
You go.
There are more people dying of cancer. There's more people dying with heart attacks. There's more people dying of strokes. There's more people dying of flu than there is this. They keep publishing these figures about this coronavirus, and the figures have been inflation because people have been going and having death certificates for other illnesses, and they've written at the bottom COVID. And when someone said, but they didn't die of COVID, it's all right. It's all inflation, and it's just ridiculous.
Well, listen, Maureen,
the British people shouldn't
I know
be
you're not a
fooled.
fan of scientists. I can see that, and you don't vote for them, don't want them in charge. But can I just bring one of our scientists who's very nice in? It's Dr. Sarah Jarvis. She's here this morning. What do you make of what Maureen is saying there? Because it is what a lot of people feel. I think if you haven't been... I mean, they've had coronavirus, and they've come through, and they're fine. So they have their own personal experience, which is very positive, and actually... getting through coronavirus is a lot better for them in their personal experience than dealing with being trapped inside. I mean, this is something that we're hearing from a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've got a huge amount of sympathy for you, Maureen. I absolutely understand what happened in March with the first lockdown. We didn't know enough about this virus. I know that your husband has said he's lived through 6 pandemics. Unless you're both over 101, you've never lived through one like this, because there's never been one which has killed anything like as many as this one has. Now, in March, we didn't know enough about it. We were all really scared, but we did know that by keeping people who are really vulnerable inside, we completely eliminate any risk. What we did was we totally underestimated the impact on their mental health. And you're absolutely right. People who are completely locked down are twice as likely to have been depressed. They're more likely for their memory to fail and so on. But when you say, let's protect the vulnerable people, I know you're just like my great-aunt Mabel, who was completely convinced that, you know, the youngsters there were, you know, they were a bit wet, and she was the one who was going to keep things going. The trouble is, your immune system hasn't read the memo about that. I know you say you had coronavirus. I don't know if you were tested. We won't know if you actually had it. It might have been something else. And although you've come out the other side, if that's what you had, the simple fact of the matter is you were 500 times more likely to die from coronavirus. And if we have too many people getting unwell with coronavirus and ending up in hospitals, then all those people with cancer, all those people with strokes, all those people with other medical problems can't be seen either, because the hospitals are overwhelmed. So nobody's saying shut down. Nobody's saying close your doors and don't go out. We want you to go out and get out in the fresh air. We want you to get out and stay healthy and have some social contact. If you go into a shop now, people will be wearing face coverings. It'll be less dangerous for you. So it's less dangerous for you to go out. But I do say, I'm afraid, I know you think that it's the old and vulnerable who should be, quote, looked after. But actually, no matter how well you feel at the age of 83, you are very vulnerable.
Can I say something to you now? You said I've never lived through anything like this. I'll cast my mind back. I don't know whether you can remember. 1968, 100,000 people alone died in this country. And it will go the same as any other virus through the herd immunity syndrome. And every virus that ever comes along goes through that procedure. All you're doing when delaying it and putting all these restrictions on, it's calming it down, it'll stop. And then as soon as you take them off, it'll be back off again until it stops infecting people. And that is, all the scientists in the world, there's a few thousand of them now, saying exactly this. And so you're guessing because you don't know, you're inexperienced. Like,
Well,
and
let's
what
let
I've got
Dr. Sarah pick
against
up on that
you
one.
is the fact that I've got
Mike.
a lot more experience and seen a lot more, and how it's happened.
That's all right. My dad's
this is
94
what
and he
annoys
doesn't
me.
believe I know anything either. But even he doesn't think he's ever lived through anything like this, and he's been a fighter pilot in the Korean
You don't know
War.
anything. You don't know sufficient. You don't know sufficient. You've not experienced it.
Michael, I think everybody has different experiences in this pandemic. I have a very particular one myself, which you may or may not be aware of, but it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you and Maureen and hear from you, and you speak for a lot of people, and
yeah, Maureen,
your energy is wonderful.
It's infectious. I know you said you wouldn't be Prime Minister, but there's a lot of people calling for you to be Prime Minister.